She was so evil, grass won't even grow on her grave. Trigger warning. In 1905, in Pineview, North Carolina, a little girl was born and named Jeanette. Jeanette's mother said, "It was summertime. We were out cropping tobacco when my water broke. My husband and father rushed me to the backer barn where we delivered our baby, whose cord was wrapped around her neck. She wasn't breathing. She was turning blue. My father took the goat hoof shears and cut the cord from around her neck, and that was when she took her first breath. From that point on, I called her my little miracle, but I had no idea just how much of a demon that child really was." Now, despite her family loving her and supporting her in every way, they noticed that Jeanette was displaying some very concerning behavior. Something was wrong with her. Jeanette began abusing animals and other children, and at 4 years old, she threw her baby cousin out of a window, permanently disabling him. At 7, she stole razor blades from a store, broke them up, and put them in her mom's food, but luckily her mom found them before she ate it. She lured a little boy out to the creek bridge, pushed him off the bridge, broke his leg, and left him there. He wasn't found until 3 days later. So, of course, all throughout school, Jeanette was a big bully, and she was constantly beating up and threatening other kids. By the time Jeanette was 9 years old, she had a long history of killing family pets. She killed 5 dogs, 6 cats, 4 goldfish, 17 rabbits, 7 hamsters, and 2 parrots. Why in the hell would her family keep giving her more pets? They were enabling a serial killer. Jeanette was 10. She lured 2 of her cousins and their dog out in the woods, and all 3 of them. The 2 cousins did survive, but the dog didn't, and she stole his tail. They never found it. They were kicked out of church after Jeanette was caught stealing money from the collection plate and feeding it to the toddlers in Sunday school, and she was also caught choking 2 other children. She couldn't be left alone with anyone. Jeanette's mom said, "For whatever reason, I felt like I messed up with Jeanette, so when she was 10, me and my husband began trying for another child." Why would you bring another child around this demon? When Jeanette was 12, we had our son. When we brought him home from the hospital, the first thing Jeanette said when she saw him was, "Wow, he would look really good in a pot of hot boiling water on the stove." And that was the moment I knew I could not leave her alone with her little brother. Gee, you think it took you that long to figure that out? She was so bad, the whole community shunned her and her family. They said, "Look, we don't want her at the church, the school, our house, at family gatherings. We don't want her nowhere near us." Now, despite her horrific reputation, by the time Jeanette was 16 years old, she met a really nice boy named Willie. He was 18, he went to a different school, and the pair began dating. Oh man, Willie, no, I know it's coming. She's gonna kill him. Willie was a very sweet boy. He was a hard worker. He saved up his money, he got him a car, a place, and eventually they got married and moved in together. Jeanette would always threaten Willie, "If you try to leave, I'll take you out with the others. I'll put you in the ground with the demons. You don't want to with me, Willie." While on their honeymoon, Willie was hospitalized after Jeanette bashed him in the head with a statue because she said he wasn't walking fast enough. Within a couple of years of getting married, Willie had bought a farm and they were now making a good income by selling their crops. Jeanette did what she wanted. Either she stayed home, went out drinking, was at the bars, or was out with other men. At 18, Jeanette gave birth to their first child, a little girl named Gertrude, but within 3 months, the baby was sent to live with her grandmother. Because Jeanette tried to choke the baby to death after Willie bought her a dress. She said he was giving the baby too much attention. She didn't like that. By the time Jeanette was 21, she had gotten pregnant with another man's baby. Willie knew it was not his child, but he did not care because he was devoted to this marriage. Y'all, when Jeanette had this baby, she named him after the baby's father. She didn't name him after Willie. I can't with this witch. I would her ass. Willie adored Robert, and everywhere Willie went, he took Robert with him. He doted on him. He did not mind that Robert was not his biological child. Jeanette quickly realized that she could use the children to manipulate Willie into doing whatever she wanted and giving her whatever she wanted, so she quickly got pregnant with the next child, which was Willie's. The next child was a little girl that Jeanette named Janelle, and her father nicknamed her Birdie. But sadly, Birdie did not make it past 3 weeks old because Jeanette beat her to death and then threw her off a cliff and claimed it was an accident. Dang, she is evil. But everyone that knew them knew it was no accident because Jeanette had been badgering Willie to get her a new car, and when he said they couldn't afford it, she took it out on baby Birdie. She told Willie, "If you don't get me that car, you're next." And within a couple of weeks, she had a new car. I would have took that car and run her ass over. Willie said, "I should have known something was up when she said she was going to take the baby for a walk. She never did that. And unfortunately, by the time I realized what was going on, it was too late." Now, before we hate Willie, let me just say, Willie grew up in a very toxic household where he was abused by his parents and he was nearly killed multiple times. People believe he was also on the spectrum, and now he's a victim of domestic violence, and they think that's why he was so afraid of her. So within a couple of years, they had gotten pregnant again, and Janelle had another little girl, and this time she named her Bernadette. Now, when Jeanette had Bernadette, Willie took the baby when she was like 2 days old to his family's house because he was afraid that Jeanette was going to kill her. Within 3 months of having Bernadette, Jeanette was pregnant again by another man. So within a year of having her third child, Jeanette is now having her fourth child, a little girl who she names Willadine. Now, Jeanette doted on Willadine, and people think the only reason she loved her so much much was because Willadine's biological father was Jeanette's high school sweetheart who she was still in love with. Now during this time, Willadine, the last child, she's already up a few years and she's acting just like her mother, if not worse. So now Jeanette has all her kids back and she favors Willadine, and her and Willadine make the other kids' lives a living hell. So before long, Jeanette was pregnant again, this time by Willie, and they have their fourth child, a little boy they call Jacob. The only reason Jacob survived was because Willie kept him on his shoulder with him at work 24/7 so they couldn't hurt him. So by her late 20s, Jeanette has her last baby, a little girl who she names Geraldine. All the remaining kids feared their mother. They were terrified of her, and they learned pretty quickly, if you want to live, you better stay away from mom. Except for Willadine, because Willadine was her favorite. The whole family was terrified of Jeanette because they knew if you got on her bad side, she would kill you. And the sad part was there wasn't really any police in this town back then at that time. People got away with a lot back then, especially abusive or killer parents. So fast forward a few years, and 2 of the grandparents have died, and now those kids are being sent back to live with Jeanette and Willie. One way that she would torture her kids is she would buy them a pet, let them love it, and then when she got mad, she would kill and then make them bury it. She would beat these kids so bad that, like I said, Willie would have to take them to work to keep them alive. Jeanette would starve these kids, beat them, lock them in the house, wouldn't let them talk to each other. She turned them against each other. Willadine would snitch on the other kids, and she would even make stuff up just so Jeanette would beat and abuse the other kids, and sometimes Willadine abused them too. It was all she knew. Willadine wrote, "I was always my mama's favorite until I was 13, and when my body began to develop, my mom despised me. It was like she was jealous of me. She hated the sight of me. So by the time Willadine was older and her mama turned on her, Willadine now had nobody because none of the other kids wanted anything to do with her at that point. So now Willadine was on her own." Willadine said, "When I was 15, I got pregnant by my high school sweetheart. When I told my mom, she threw me through a window. She said if we didn't get rid of it, she would get rid of me. Mom said that she would not allow her husband to support my bastard. It's not his responsibility or hers." Now back then, they really didn't have abortion clinics around, so Jeanette told Willadine if she wanted to live in their house, she would have to let her do an abortion. So to get rid of this child, Jeanette forced Willadine to drink poison. She did, you know what, with a hanger. She hit her in the stomach. She even took her out to the river in the middle of wintertime and dunked her in the water repeatedly. But it didn't work, and Willadine gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby. But Jeanette said one way or another we're getting rid of that child, and she meant it. 2 days later, Jeanette came into Willadine's room with 2 strangers and a handful of money, and they took the baby and left. Jeanette sold her own grandchild. Willadine wrote, "That's when trouble really started. After Mama realized she could make a lot of money from selling these babies, she basically became my handler or pimp from that point forward. Part 2 coming up, and things get even crazier with this family."
You heard of the elevator game? If you've ever played scary games as a kid, you might have come across the elevator game. We all know Bloody Mary, Charlie Charlie. It's a very similar game to those. When I was a kid, I was always horrified of elevators. I was scared they were gonna fall. I was scared that I was gonna get locked in. I was scared that they were gonna shoot out of the ceiling like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. It was a real fear of mine. And then one day, me and my friends were on the internet and we were looking at scary games and we stumbled across the elevator game. I'm gonna tell you guys the rules of the elevator game, but under no circumstances can you try this game. Me and my friends read the rules. Rule number 1, you have to go into an elevator of your choosing completely alone. Number 2, the elevator has to have at least 13 floors. Then you press the button for floor number 7. Then you press the button to the 4th floor and then the 8th floor. And you have to push all of these buttons in order, but the order is 748-25169. Then at some point, a woman will get on the elevator. When she does, do not talk to her, do not even look at her. And then supposedly, if you do this game right and you don't look at the woman, then the next time the doors open, you'll be in a whole nother world, completely alone. When me and my friends heard that, we're like, we've got to play this game. A whole world just to us? That's awesome. We decided that we had to play, so we headed to the nearest hotel, and then we had to decide who to send in. We decided to draw straws to see who would go, so we all, one by one, picked a straw. And lo and behold, I picked the shortest one.
The baby eater. When I was 5 months pregnant, I lived in a trailer park surrounded by neighbors, and to the right of me was a woman named Miss Kim, who was Filipino, and her husband, Mr. John, who was a white man. I was 19 and they were in their early 60s, and they were so wise. They were always coming over with food and offering advice. Especially when she found out I was pregnant, she would say, "You and baby need to eat." She kept me fed 24/7. She didn't want me doing anything while pregnant. If she saw me doing something like heavy lifting, she would come take over. One day I look out the window and I see Miss Kim pouring coins out on the front porch and the doorsteps, and I asked her why she was doing that. She said it was for the spirits, and towards the end of the month, we'll gather them up and give them to the neighborhood kids. I mean tons of change, probably over $100 that she would give away every month. Around 6 months pregnant, I start having these really vivid nightmares about this big monster trying to get in the house and take my unborn baby. One of these monsters was big and had half a body. It looked like the top half had been ripped away from the bottom half. There was no butt or legs. It was only a head, shoulders, torso with a spine hanging out and big wings, and it flew around like that. Usually it had bat wings, but sometimes it had angel wings. It just depended on the nightmare. The worst part was I would dream that this thing would perch on the side of the trailer and stick its needle-like nose through the wall and pierce my belly and suck the baby out and eat it, and I could see this happening, but I couldn't move. I was like paralyzed. Sometimes I would wake up with that feeling on the back of my neck like it was standing right there. I felt like it was so close to me. These nightmares got so bad that I went to the doctor and they prescribed me Ambien, but I was too scared to take it because Ambien is a very strong medication, so I never took it. I went to Miss Kim to ask her what I could take that would be safe for the baby because she had a lot of knowledge on herbal remedies. I told her what I'd been dreaming about, and she said that's a meningog or a meningo. I can't pronounce it, but either way, it's a baby eater. It steals a baby from your womb. I know I butchered that word. It's been so long since I've heard it, so feel free to correct me in the comments. She said that needle you saw was not its nose, that's its tongue. That's how it sucks the baby out of you, and it uses that to pierce through walls and ceilings to get to you. But what was crazy to me was how she could explain my nightmares to me without me even telling her because she knew exactly what this was and what it was after. She said I can ease some of the nightmares, but they won't completely go away, but we will have to do some things to protect the baby and scare this thing off. So she goes to the feed store and gets 2 big giant bags of pure salt and brings it home and pours it all the way around the trailer, every doorway, window, even threw it on the roof. And she gets a bunch of garlic out of her garden and puts it on thread and hangs it all around the house. She told me to sleep with garlic under my pillow and hold one in my hand and keep it with me at all times, so I did as much as I can remember to. She was up on the roof with a yardstick, put one of these things up over my bedroom, and it did ease my nightmares up. My nightmares went from very vivid and graphic to very hazy and not as often, and I started getting more sleep. Whatever she did helped my morning sickness too, no joke. And Miss Kim would tell me, don't go out at night or this thing will get you, but I didn't know if it was even real, and sometimes I had to go out at night because I had things to do. So one night we're coming back from a baby shower around 9:30 at night, and we pull up in the driveway. I'm dozing off, and I see this big winged creature flying around the trees, so I jump and say, what the hell was that? And my partner slammed on brakes and said, you saw it too? I thought it was a giant buzzard. That thing was huge. But it was so dark, and it's in North Carolina. We didn't know if it was a big-ass bat, buzzard, or what it was, so we just sat in the car for a minute and wait. We pull up behind the house, and I look over and see Miss Kim and Mr. John standing on their back porch, and Miss Kim's holding a shotgun, and when I get out the car, she said, I told you not to go out after dark. It's here. Get in the house. So I took off running in the house because I was scared. All 4 of us saw whatever it was flying around the trailer park that night. The next day, we come outside, and we find these big, tall bamboo sticks that have sharpened ends like big spears, and they've been jobbed down in the ground, so if anything lands on the trailer, it'll hit these spears first. Miss Kim and her husband had been out back cutting bamboo down in the woods, making spears out of them just in case this thing tried to land on one of our trailers. Now 9 months pregnant, I'm miserable, and I'm laying in the recliner like, oh my God, baby, please come. And all of a sudden I hear boom, boom. And when we go out back, we see Miss Kim on her porch with a 410 shotgun shooting up in the air. She said she was shooting at the maningall because it was flying around our house. It always came back. One night he went out there and said, I think that's a giant turkey. It's that big. The wingspan is huge, but he could never hit it. For the next few days, all the trailer park would hear is boom, 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 boom from her firing that gun all night, trying to keep this thing away. A lot of the neighbors got mad at her shooting at all times of the night, but she didn't care. She didn't stop. Some of the neighbors thought she was just crazy, but we did have another neighbor who was from Nigeria, and they believed in this thing too, but they called it by a different word, but I can't pronounce it. Finally, I had the baby and I came home, and by then she had taken up all the spears and the trinkets saying the maningall was gone, but she left the salt around the trailer because there were other things that could try to hurt us. She said, if you see anything on top of your house, at the window, or at the foot of your bed, you let me know immediately. Miss Kim did not play, and she was all about helping others. Like, I loved having her as a neighbor. But a couple years later, Miss Kim and Mr. John went back to the Philippines because her family got sick and needed her help, and I missed her so much when they moved. She was all about her culture, her family, her children, and helping others. Just such a strong woman. I always looked up to her. I found out through an old neighbor that her and Mr. John passed away within 30 days of each other. They basically died together, and they were always so close it made sense.
Can we show them the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go. As you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
They went to both.
Yeah.
Never get close to an accident in the middle of the night. Or at least that's what this guy says because of what happened to him. This happened 10 years ago when the guy was 30 years old and bought his first car. He actually bought the car without even knowing how to drive, so he says that it took him a month to learn and get his license. And it just so happened that when he got his license, he also got a week off of work for vacation, and he planned to go to Querétaro because that's where all his family is from. He also invited his girlfriend on this trip, and they decided to leave in the middle of the night because there wouldn't be that
much traffic. The amount of times I would leave at 3 in the morning from Austin all the way to the valley, I'm so glad this never happened to me. So they're on the road and he says that him and his girlfriend are singing along to some music. In that moment is when he starts to see from afar that there is a car with its headlights just blinking. And as they're getting closer, he notices that the car was actually flipped upside down. They could tell that it was an accident and it was a family inside that car. He said he could tell that they had hit one of those like cement medians and that he knew there was a family in the car because he could hear all of them screaming for help. So when he finally gets next to the car, he just wants to make sure that there is somebody in there, they do need help, and indeed he hears all of them screaming very desperately. Because he sees a lot of like oil and gas coming out of the car, he got scared and he did reverse back at a distance. That way he's not close to the car if it decides to like explode or anything like that. When he parks the car, he tells his girlfriend to stay in the car and to call the police for help, and he gets out because he wants to go help the family. He approaches the car very carefully, and at that point there was nobody screaming for help anymore. He says that the only thing he can hear is like the gas or the oil just leaking out of that car. So as he's about to kneel down to look into the window of the car, he feels an arm on his shoulder and a male voice behind him saying, "Hey young man, can you please help me get them out of the car?" When he turned, he sees a man. He looks maybe 50 with gray hair, but he looks very strong. And of course, he told the man that he would help. The man asked him if he could first help him get the kids out of the back seat. He said that they both kneeled down and got into position to try to take those kids out, and he first saw a little girl that was unconscious. He said it wasn't that hard to get the little girl out because she was so tiny, but that he grabbed her by the shoulders and the arms, and that the man grabbed her by her feet and pulled her out of there. When they pulled her out, he was still holding her from her shoulders and the man from her feet, and they kind of placed her on the road just at a little bit of a distance from the car. As they're walking back to the car, the man's like, "Okay, we need to go to the left and get that little boy out." He says that this little boy did look like he was in really bad shape, and they did the same thing. He grabbed him by the shoulders, the man got him by his feet, and they went to go lay them down gently away from that car. While they were bringing that boy back to where the girl was, his safety, he said that he did ask the man where he left his car because he didn't see it around them, and the man never answered him. But he says that he noticed that when he asked that question, the man looked like he was hurt or like in pain, or like that this whole like accident was affecting him a lot more than it should have. So they leave the little boy with the other little girl, and as they're walking back to the car, the man asked him to take the little baby out of the passenger's arms. However, this time when he got close to the passenger window, he noticed that the window wasn't completely broken. There was only like a little part, so he needed like a jacket in order to put it there so he wouldn't cut himself and get that baby out of the passenger's arms. Without even looking back, he asked the man if he can borrow his jacket so that he can try to get that baby out through the window without getting cut. But the man never said anything. He never responded. He thought to himself that maybe that man didn't hear him, so he turned around to say it a little louder, and when he did, the guy was no longer there. He thought that maybe he went to his car to get something, but the only car that he can see on that road was the one that was crashed, and his at a distance. He said that he didn't have the time to wait for that man to come out, so he took his own shirt off and wrapped it around his arm that was gonna have to touch the sharp glass. He very carefully got the baby out of that car as safely as he could. Thankfully, it was in that moment where he could finally hear the police or like the ambulance sirens getting close to where they were. Since he heard them coming, he didn't go back to the car to try to get anybody else out. He said that the police, paramedics, and the firefighters showed up. He said that the police interrogated him and actually got mad at him for even moving those kids out of that car. He admits to the cops that he wasn't gonna move them, but there was a man there who had asked him to help him get them out of the car. That's when the police asked him to describe the man who was asking for that help. So he tells them it was a man in his 50s, he had gray hair, he had a blue jacket on, he had green jeans on, and he had some white sneakers on. He also mentioned that in that moment, the kids started waking up. The paramedics did say that the kids had some injuries and bruising, but that they were gonna be okay. He said that the firefighters were in charge of getting the two adults that were on the driver and passenger side. Even though they told him that he could leave already since he wasn't involved, he did stay there a little bit because he was a little curious about the conditions of the people in the front. He was so surprised at how fast the firefighters were able to get the lady out of the passenger seat, put her on that gurney, and left with her in the ambulance. He said that when the firefighters got to the driver's side, it did take them a little bit longer because he was really stuck in there. However, when they were able to get that person out and put him on that gurney, he says that he saw somebody really familiar laying there. It was the same man that had been asking for his help. I got chills. But trust me, you do not expect this ending. He said that the only difference was that he could see some injuries all around his face, but it was the same man. The hair, the jacket, the jeans, like his tennis shoes, it was the guy. Even when he turned to look at the police, they were all in a state of shock because that was the same man that he had just described to them moments ago, and they were looking at each other like, what the fuck? He says that he did not hold back. Like, he even went up to him and said, that's the man. That's the man who asked for my help. That's the guy who helped me take the kids out of that car. He said that the cops were like already shaken, but then they turned to anger and were like, you need to stop, you need to leave, like you don't have anything to do with this anymore. He didn't want to give the cops any more trouble, so he agreed to leave, but as he's walking to his car, he's like, I was so confused, like what just happened? He can see that his girlfriend was asleep in the car, but when he opened the door, she woke up. With a very shakily voice, he asked his girlfriend if she had seen the guy who helped them take the kids out of the car, and her answer left him in even more shock because she tells him that she saw only him getting that boy and little girl out of that car. He insisted that it wasn't him alone because he was like, I was only holding on to their shoulders and their arms, the other man was holding on to their feet. There's no way that you would have only seen me take them out when we were both holding on to like the opposite ends of those kids. And that was when his girlfriend said that when she was looking at him, yeah, he was holding on to their shoulders and their arms, but that he was dragging them. The feet were dragging on the street all the way to the point where he would leave them to safety. And I know you think you know how this ends, but I'm telling you, it's not what you think. He said that he felt like he was going crazy about what his girlfriend just told him, but he couldn't leave it alone. He saw that the ambulance was about to get ready to take off, so he went and asked him if the man in that car had passed away. The paramedics answered no, that he had really bad injuries, but he was in stable condition. The driver, the guy, he's alive. Not just that, but he saw him awake in the ambulance. The guy was awake in the fucking ambulance. The paramedics thanked him for his great work at getting the kids out safely, and they left. He said that he has not stopped thinking about this whole situation because it would only have made sense to him if maybe the dad's soul, his spirit, was there asking him to take the kids out of the car. But the man, he's not dead. Like, he didn't die in that accident. He says that when he tells this story, people are like, maybe it was a different person. He's like, no, like it was not a different person. It was that same man. So what do you guys think? Like, to me, it would also make sense if he had passed away. Maybe his soul was trying to help him save his children and his wife, but the guy was alive. Or it could have been like, maybe did he die for a moment? I don't know. What do you guys think?
You don't know me, and honestly, that might make this easier for me to say. I've tried explaining what happened to people who know me, but they usually laugh it off or say I must have imagined it. Maybe you'll think the same thing. Still, I feel like someone should hear about that night in the Appalachian Mountains. I went there last fall with a small group of friends. We rented a little cabin far up in the mountains, the kind of place surrounded by nothing but trees for miles. The drive alone felt strange. The roads twisted through thick forest, and after a while, our phones lost signal completely. No service, no messages, nothing. Just the road and the mountains around us. When we finally got there, the place looked peaceful enough. The cabin sat on a hill with tall trees all around it. You could hear the wind moving through the branches and see fog slowly drifting between the mountains. At first it felt beautiful, the kind of quiet people go there to find. But the quiet didn't feel normal for long. That evening we decided to walk a trail behind the cabin. Someone had mentioned that it led to a clearing where you could see the mountains and the stars at night. It sounded simple enough. We grabbed flashlights and started down the path. At the beginning, nothing seemed unusual. Leaves crunched under our shoes, and the air had that cold mountain smell. But after a while, I noticed something that didn't sit right with me. There were more footsteps than there should have been. I tried to ignore it at first. I figured maybe the sound was echoing through the trees, or someone behind me was stepping harder than the rest of us. But every time we stopped walking, the extra footsteps stopped too. No one said anything for a while, but I could tell everyone else noticed it eventually. Then we heard a whistle. It came from somewhere deeper in the woods. Long and slow, like someone trying to call out without using words. One of my friends laughed nervously and said maybe it was someone hiking nearby. But the thing is, earlier on the trail, that same friend had made the exact whistle as a joke. And when the sound came from the forest, he was standing right next to me. We all got quiet after that. The woods around us felt darker than they should have. Trees blocked most of the moonlight, and the fog had started creeping along the ground. Every time we turned our flashlights towards the trees, all we saw were shadows and branches. Then the whistle came again. closer this time. None of us said a word, but we all turned around and started walking back toward the cabin. The whole way back, it felt like something was following us just out of sight. Not rushing, not running, just walking slowly somewhere behind the trees. When we finally reached the clearing near the cabin, the porch light was glowing in the distance. I remember feeling relieved for a moment. Then I made the mistake of turning around. At the very edge of the forest, right where the trees began again, there was a shape standing between them. It was tall and still, almost blending into the darkness. I couldn't make out a face or any details, just a figure standing there, watching. And then it whistled again. The same whistle we had heard on the trail. We ran inside after that. No one wanted to talk about it much. Everyone tried to come up with normal explanations, maybe a hiker, maybe some kind of animal, maybe just our imagination playing tricks on us. But here's the part that keeps bothering me. Later that night, I looked out the cabin window before going to sleep. From there you can see the edge of the woods clearly, and standing right at the tree line, something was still there, not moving, just waiting. You might think this sounds ridiculous, maybe it does, but if you ever find yourself walking through the Appalachian woods at night and you hear a whistle that sounds almost human, I suggest you don't answer it. And at this time, I did not know the rules of the mountain. Ooh, it's getting a little bit dark outside. This one spooked me. Thank you to this person for sending me your story. This one was really, really good. If you want to send me your scary story, email it to lidslunacy@gmail.com. It will be in the description. It's also in the bio on my page. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
I was in a little bit of a scary situation on a long-haul flight recently. I was flying from LA to Brisbane, a non-stop 13-hour flight with Qantas. I am no stranger to this flight. My fiance is from LA. He lives here in Australia with me now. But all his family is still in LA and we go to visit them every 6 to 12 months. And before that, we were long distance, so I would go to America quite often to visit him. And I always pick this flight because it's my favorite time. Anyway, so we're 6 hours into this flight. I'd been asleep for a few hours and I wake up and I'm busting to pee. I really need to pee. So I jump up. My partner is asleep next to me. So I jump over him and then I go to the bathroom. I see that someone's in the toilet. So I turn around, and as I turn around, my vision goes blurry and I just drop. I vaguely remember a crew member asking me if I'm okay. Next thing I know, I'm flat on the ground. One of the crew members actually caught me. I fainted into his arms. He laid me down and then other crew members started gathering around and trying to help. I was so disorientated and so scared. When I came to, my vision was still really bad and I couldn't see. I was really scared and I kept saying, I can't see, I can't see. The cabin crew were incredible at calming me down. They were like, it's okay, I'm here, we're here. They were holding me. Not to sound dramatic, it was really, really scary and they were incredible. I have never seen people spring into action so quickly and try so hard to make me feel comfortable. I was mortified. I was so embarrassed. Like when I started feeling better and I came to, they popped me on the oxygen and laid me down and I was feeling much better. I just kept saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm mortified, I'm so sorry. And they were joking with me, they were laughing, they were like, oh, this happens all the time, don't even worry. They were like, no, it's our pleasure, it gives us something exciting to do. Like they were making me feel so good. They went and got my fiance, brought him back, gave me a can of Coke, took me back to my seat. They came and checked on me every hour for the rest of the flight. I just went back to sleep, but upon waking, they came and gave me my breakfast early and they were like, you need to eat early. Like, we don't want you fainting again. They brought me snacks. They brought me Qantas pajamas to make me feel better. They asked if I needed any help getting my bags or anything on the other end. They were incredible. I felt so lucky to be cared for by them in that moment, and I'm just so incredibly grateful that they were there. I feel like people love to get on social media and really be mean about airlines when something goes wrong, but this is something positive and people don't always post about the positive stuff because it doesn't get as many clicks. But I just had the best experience. I always fly Qantas, they're my favorite airline. And this really just proved why. So I wanted to give Qantas their flowers and post this. And somehow, if this winds up on your For You page and you were one of the crew members that looked after me during that scary time, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And I've been telling everyone about how great you are. So.
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?
Everything going on on right now has really got me thinking about the time I was a shift lead at a coffee shop and a couple rolled through and threatened a 16-year-old that they were going to unalive anyone that didn't vote for the person that they voted for. Let's talk about it. So let's set the scene. The way this coffee shop is set up is there's someone on the window that's both taking orders, cashing people out, handing people drinks. There's someone that's finishing off drinks, topping off milk, steaming milk, and then there's someone pulling shots, starting off the drinks, whatever. And I was right in the middle, as leaders typically were at this company. That way you have a good gauge of what's going on at the window. You can also keep an eye on what's going on the floor. On my left at the window, there was this really sweet 16-year-old girl. Everything was going great. She was a very bubbly person. And then this couple rolls up. Now, they ordered multiple drinks, so their order wasn't quite ready yet. So this 16-year-old was just kind of killing time. She asked, "How's your guys' day going?" And they go, "Great, we just went out and voted. Who'd you vote for?" This was during a presidential election. And her being 16, she goes, "Oh, I actually can't vote yet, and we're not allowed to talk about that anyways." At this point, I'm listening to the conversation. I'm like, great, she shut it down. We're almost done with their drinks and they're going to be gone. And so in the last few seconds of us finishing up the drinks, she's trying to fill this empty air. And she says, "So what do you guys have going on for the rest of your day?" And do you want to know what they said to this 16-year-old girl? These two fully grown adults look at this 16-year-old girl and they say, "Well, we were going to go home and get our pew-pews and unalive every liberal we can find." And I hate that I have to use such stupid words for such a serious threat because otherwise this video is going to get suppressed. As soon as the word pew-pew was uttered, she was immediately off the window and I was there handing them their drink. I handed them their drinks. I said, "That is completely unacceptable. You can never come back to this location or any other location. Have a great rest of your day. We have your information on file." Closed the window and it was done. I bring this up because back then, I remember being so astounded because how could you just bring up a threat of that caliber in casual conversation in defense of your political view? As the years have gone on, it's normal. It's normal. That is a normal interaction, unfortunately.